How we living, big dogs? Welcome back to the HQ. It's your man's Nicholas. Big dogs gotta eat. BDGE fantasy football. The 2019 NFL Draft Combine is in the novels. Therefore, we gotta talk about rookies. The top rookies for 2019 fantasy football. Today's video specifically, that shit don't even make sense. Specifically is going to be talking about the top rookie running backs for 2019 fantasy football post Combine. Friday's video will be the top wide receiver rookies. Next week's on Tuesday will be quarterback, tight end, a little mixture of them because most of them don't really make impacts in their rookie year. So we could kind of smush them together, smash them, do a little schnooky action, and we're on to the next one. So today's video is going to be in-depth breakdowns of my top somewhere between 5 and 8 rookie running backs for 2019 fantasy football, their draft spot projections, which round we expect them to be drafted in the NFL draft, the best landing spot where I think they would excel the most in fantasy football, and just what their ceilings and their floors are going to be for next year in fantasy football. We're going to break down their college production. We're going to look at some film. We're going to look at their combine performance. We're going to mix it all up in a pot, and this is what you got. And about halfway through the video, your man has got some dope announcements for you guys. So make sure you stay tuned. Make sure you hit that thumbs up button if you've enjoyed any of the analysis I've given this offseason. If you enjoy any of the analysis I give in this video, I love y'all. Let's get it. So let's talk rookie running backs in general first. And a lot of my analysis this offseason is going to be looking at both season long and dynasty. When we look at running backs, fantasy footballers all across the globe have been spoiled like some goddamn 2-week-old milk when it comes to running backs, right? Last year, the year prior even, like we've had so many good quality workhorse running backs coming to the NFL. If you've had a first round dynasty pick in like the first half of your draft in the last few years, you probably have some kind of a workhorse back on your team right now, and you're probably sitting pretty. However, if you're desperate for running backs, this is not the year to own early picks. This is one of the weakest running back classes that we've seen in quite some time, whereas on the flip side, the inverse, the wide receiver class is abnormally strong, and again, we'll get into that on Friday. There are very few backs in this class that project to be a workhorse. The reason is because to be a workhorse, you have to have a 3-down skill set, and for the most part, you have to have pretty good size. There are not a lot of guys at the top of the rankings that have the 5'11", 220 buildish, and if they do, they did not show college production, or they didn't catch passes, or whatever, right? There's no Saquon Barkleys, Gordons, Gurleys, Zekes, any of those kinds in this draft class. Of course, we could look back in a few years and be like, wow, this guy is really goddamn good, and I'm sure that's going to happen, but for projecting for the draft, for your dynasty draft, the value of that top pick takes a hit because there's not a consensus number one like Saquon Barkley or anything like that. The way I look at this class is the majority of them won't succeed on their own, but in good landing spots, many of them can have good NFL careers and can be impactful in fantasy. Right now, I was writing down a list of teams that I think need running backs, and there's almost a third of the NFL that could end up drafting a running back in this class. We have the Jets, we have the Raiders, we have the Buccaneers, Buffalo, Baltimore, Philadelphia, Kansas City, Miami, Chicago. There were trade rumors about Jordan Howard, so it's clearly he doesn't really fit that well in that system, so we'll see what happens there. So those are like 9 teams off the dome right there that I think could definitely end up drafting a running back, and there are probably others that I'm not even thinking about. So there will be some impacts made from this class. I'm going to list some of my favorite guys here. And the number one guy on this list for me is Devin Singletary out of Florida Atlantic University. Most of you guys who don't do analysis and watch film might not have heard of this guy, but as soon as you turn on the film, woo! This guy is gorgeous, as we like to say in the HQ. His combine was miserable. Absolutely miserable. We knew he was small. He came in 5'7", 203. That's small, but if you look at his BMI right under that, 31.8, he's actually in the 82nd percentile. He has build to him. Although he's short and he's a little light, the way he's built is very much of a running back. And 82nd percentile for BMI is pretty solid. So I'm not too worried about the size. The metrics on the right side, his 40-yard dash, a 4.66. His weight adjusted speed score is in the 13th percentile. It was just a very bad performance. Had he tested well at the combine, he would have been by far and away my favorite running back in this class, because when you put on the film, the first thing you see is a lot of Kareem Hunt in him. He's a guy that doesn't explode off the screen when it comes to, long speed or running guys over or anything like that, but he's just powerful with really, really good balance, really good vision. You never see a guy take him down in the backfield. He makes the first guy miss almost every single time. There have been comparisons to LaShawn McCoy when it comes to Devin Singletary. My player comp immediately was Kareem Hunt. My nickname for him is Devin Pringletary. You know why? Because once you fucking pop, fun don't stop with this guy. Again, though, for someone that I like as the number one running back in this class, his success, I believe, is going to depend on his landing spot. One of the absolute best resources when it comes to running backs having success in the NFL, like looking at rookie analysis, is a guy named Graham Barfield who worked for Fantasy Guru and now he actually works for NFL.com. Graham Barfield does a column every year called Yards Created, where he watches film of every running back in the class and he has his own statistic where it basically divides running backs away from their offensive line to see how good the running back was on his own. And this Yards Created column that he's created, I don't even know how to fucking use the words anymore right now, has been so ridiculously good at projecting rookie running backs and their success. I mean, he hit on guys like Kareem Hunt, Alvin Kamara. Last year, he was all in on Nick Chubb, Sony Michel, Saquon Barkley, of course. Saquon Barkley like broke his yards created thing. But all of the under-the-radar guys that end up having success in the rookie year, Graham has been super high on them. So he's been amazing. This is one of the best resources. I don't think it's come out yet, but I will let you guys know, of course, because that is one of my top resources when it does come out. And I'm projecting Devin Singletary to be the number one guy in terms of yards created on Graham Barfield's column this year, because I'm telling you, you cannot tackle him on your first try. So I'm really excited to see the yards created data on him. He's ridiculously slippery. I wouldn't give him the Shady McCoy comparison only because Shady is like very flashy. He has like the ankle breaking lateral movements where he'll be on SportsCenter top 10 and shit like that. Singletary's not that guy, but just like on just a broken tackle elusiveness basis, Devin Singletary is just as good as LaShawn McCoy is, in my opinion. So like I said, the big elephant in the room is his combine performance. When I saw the 4.66 flash across the screen, I actually took an Instagram story of it while recording. It was live, and at the end, I was just like, fuck.
Down the field, and he finishes with his pads in front.
Shut up, MJD.
It's over as well.
Fat as hell.
Yes.
Come on.
It's not like you're reading a novel to me on these running backs. I love that. I love watching a running back. I love watching running backs finish because it helps the wide receivers. It helps them.
Let's go. Let's go. Oh, God.
Because I felt like, it was something that I was really happy about. I was like, Devin Singletary is my guy. I'm all in on DS. Let's get it. And then he runs like a fucking lineman. There's punters that literally ran better than a 4.66 at the combine this year. But he's one of those guys that plays much faster in the game. And I'm not too concerned because, again, listen, the reason that I'm still high on Singletary is my player comp for him is Kareem Hunt. He doesn't explode, right? He's not the fastest guy on the field. Kareem Hunt ran a 4.62. So Devin Singletary's 4.66, while it is a little bit concerning, it's not like a deal breaker for me. I think what the combine does in terms of measurements, it makes sure that you are an NFL athlete, right? So there are guys who test really poorly, like Elijah Holyfield ran like a 4.79. I know he plays better on field, but like I don't think you should necessarily look at only the upper percentile because like a guy who runs like a 4.33, that very hardly ever predicts success when it comes to like just straight speed line is very hardly a future predictive of success. But I think when you look at guys who are on the other end of the spectrum who are really slow, that is a very telling sign that they don't belong in the NFL. So when I look at these numbers, I do use them for my analysis, but I don't think like the upper and lower ends of the spectrums are like the only ways in which NFL players can succeed. So does that make sense? Like if you're in the upper echelon of the speed, like great, that's a positive for you, but it definitely doesn't guarantee success. Or on the flip side, if you're really slow, it almost definitely means that you're not going to have success. So he lands in the middle, 4.66, not great, but right underneath Kareem Hunt. But going back to, player profiler, 86th percentile college dominator rating, 55th percentile college target share, 46th percentile spark score. So he's still like a midway, halfway athlete, which is obviously not terrible. And those are the things you look for, right? You look for someone who has a high college dominator rating, means like the percentage of his team's rushing yards and rushing touchdowns that he had in college. That tells you, okay, he's good at football, right? He actually produced while on the field. So that's the number one thing. You can fucking say all the words about him flashing and guys looking good. If they were healthy, they'd be fine. Show me fucking production over a long period of time. You know what I mean? That will tell me that he's a good player. College dominator rating in the 86th percentile. 55th percentile college target share shows me that he can play on all three downs. So he is very good at running the ball, obviously by his production, and can also contribute in the passing game. And those are two signs that will tell you what the ceiling is for a player at the next level. Last year, he only caught 6 passes. I don't know why, but his freshman year, he caught 26. The next year, he caught 19. So he has shown full seasons in which he can catch the ball and catch the ball over long periods of time. And that's all I need to see is the fact that he can catch the ball. Him catching 26 passes in a college season, I'm ready to roll like fucking CeeLo. Let's get it. Okay, so the size is definitely, like I said, the big elephant in the room. The BMI is still good, but 5'7", 203 is not something you usually see a running back have success with. However, I mean, he's handled a workload, right? He's handled 562 carries over the last 2 seasons, which is almost 22 a game, a total of 3,266 rushing yards, and 54 rushing touchdowns. Over 1,000 rushing yards in all 3 seasons that he was at FAU. That shows high consistency levels over a long period of time and at a very young age, and you love that early market share of dominance, right? And the size thing, right? The concern with the size is that he can't handle enough touches. He did that in college, but that doesn't always translate. My thing is, like, Kareem Hunt's only a little bit bigger than Devin Singletary is. And Kareem Hunt last year was the RB6 in fantasy before, kicking his way out of the league. Kareem Hunt played in 10 games. He had more than 19 touches in just 3 of those 10 games. That tells me, if you're not getting, like, okay, you look at some guy and you're like, oh, I don't like his ceiling because he can't get 25 touches a game. Kareem Hunt was doing incredible in fantasy, only getting 19 or fewer touches a game in the majority of his games. So Devin Singletary can absolutely handle 15 to 18 touches a game. And with that, if he gets drafted by the Chiefs, that's what we need right here. We need the Chiefs to draft Devin Singletary. He fits the mold so perfectly for filling in for Kareem Hunt. If they draft Devin Singletary and he gets 15 to 18 touches a game, I'm all in. So I'm in love with Singletary, just watching him play. If you just throw on a little bit of game film from him, if you want to ever see someone's game film, literally just go on YouTube, type in Devin Singletary, and then the letters VS, like verse, and then just hit enter, and you'll see someone on YouTube is making someone's doing God's work on YouTube over there, cutting up clips of games and showing only the plays that he was involved in. So go watch some player analysis, some game film before you make analysis judgments, because there will be people that will write their opinions down in the comments about how you love this guy or that guy, and literally you haven't even fucking watched a single game he's played in. That's just how human beings work. Maybe you've seen like 3 highlight plays on ESPN, and you're like, that's my guy, so anyone that goes against him, I'm going to argue with, and blah, 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 blah. So do yourself a favor, watch some game film before you form your own opinions. Devin Singletary to the Kansas City Chiefs. Best spot fit easily. I still think he's a 3rd or 4th round pick, even with the miserable combine performance. If you put him on the Chiefs, I think he wins 15 touches a game in that range, and I think he could absolutely be a top 20 running back in fantasy if that's the case. Let's get to running back number 2. I want to know your guys' thoughts on Devin Singletary, though. Like, drop them down below in the comments. Do you hate Devin Singletary? Do you hate this next guy I'm about to talk about? Do you love DS like I do? Do you love me because I love you? Let's get to number 2, David Montgomery out of Iowa State. Another guy who did not test well, but he has the size, right? 5'10", 222 pounds. He's actually in the same exact percentile in terms of BMI as Devin Singletary was. When I look at David Montgomery, I see a lot of Doug Martin. Widely productive 3-year career at Iowa State in the Big 12. He racked up almost 3,000 rushing yards, 71 total receptions, 26 touchdowns, 24 of which came in his final 2 seasons. So a little bit of a slow start as a freshman. Obviously, that's not unheard of. Really got rolling sophomore and junior year. And unlike most of the top backs in this year's class, Montgomery has the frame of a workhorse. Like I said, 5'10", 222. But, I still think he is missing some other parts, which are, in my opinion, more important than some of the things that he does have. I didn't expect him to test well at the combine in terms of a 40-yard dash. 4.63 is not good. It's not surprising, but it's definitely not encouraging either. His big long runs, him going for 60 yards, are just not part of his game. That's just not what you're going to get out of David Montgomery. So when I look at the positives, right, you see the workhorse size, you see the extreme college production, very smooth, natural pass catcher, which you like because he's got the size to be an early down grinder, and he also has the skill set to be someone that can contribute on 3rd downs as well. If you saw, he's in the 72nd percentile for college target share. So very smooth, natural pass catcher, backed up by actual production, not random people on YouTube telling me that, oh, if the coaches gave him more chances to catch balls, he could do it. No, he had 58 catches over his junior and sophomore season. They had him lining up in the slot sometimes, which is a big positive for me. Like I said, 3-down workhorse potential, fantastic balance, can take hits and keep going, low center of gravity with thick, multiple C's in that thick legs going on there. Also, I want to point that out for Devin Singletary too, right? There's a difference between size and power, right? A lot of people see a guy like 6'2", 225 and assume that they are going to be able to break tackles through power. There's a difference between, violence, power, size. There are some guys who a lot of people are going to get excited about. For instance, like Alex Barnes is someone who tested off the charts at the combine. But when you watch him play, he'll break arm tackles, but he can't break through tackles, if that makes sense. He's big enough where he's like 6'2", 225-ish, where, yes, of course, an arm tackle is not going to be able to bring him down, where it might be able to grab onto someone who's 195, 200 pounds, but he doesn't run through guys. So he runs with size, but he doesn't run with power or violence. Whereas both David Montgomery and Devin Singletary have very good balance, whereas you can't just bring them down on one hit, right? They're pretty violent, and they can run with power despite Singletary being smaller. So yeah, he has great balance, really, really, really good wiggle. The lateral agility is fantastic, which I said, like, reminds me of Doug Martin. He's compact in stature and very, very shifty. He always makes the first guy miss in the backfield. He broke the Pro Football Focus record with 100 broken tackles on the year on 258 carries. So those are the positives I see with David Montgomery. The negatives, though. His career yards per carry in college, 4.7. You almost never see a successful back in the NFL have a career NFL yards per carry number that low. 4.7. That's a huge red flag for me because like I said, value production over people telling me that he flashed on film or some shit like that. 4.7 yards per carry. Like, if you're an elite running back in the NFL, you should be absolutely dominating that number in college. And I know, I'm going to look up Kerryon Johnson's real quick, because I think Kerryon Johnson was a guy who had a lower-ish yards per carry number, but he was in the SEC. So his competition was much higher. So he was at 5.1 yards per carry. That's still half a yard higher than what 0.4 yards higher than David Montgomery's. And like I said, Kerryon Johnson was going against Alabama multiple times and things like that. So he wasn't someone that I was too concerned about, but he's playing in Iowa State. The Big 12 has good defenses, but not fantastic. And that's over a 624 carry sample size in college. So 4.7 yards per carry, big red flag to me. His O-line was definitely very, very, very poor, which could have contributed to the reason why his yards per carry number was so low. But still, as an elite running back, you should be able to have higher numbers. And he doesn't break away runs, right? So he doesn't have that random like 40, 60, 80-yard run in there, which boosts a lot of players' yards per carry. So it is, a little bit of a concern there. The other thing, and I don't know if this is a concern, more as just something to keep an eye out for, and I think Montgomery, like every other running back in this class, you're going to have to really, really pay attention to their landing spot, because a landing spot is going to dictate the success for most of these running backs. He ran almost exclusively from the shotgun when he was at Iowa State, because that was their style of offense. Not his fault, of course, but I believe this is huge for his success, because if you think of a player like David Montgomery, right? So like I said, his burst is terrible, right? He's not someone who's going to shoot through the line and beat you deep. His agility is incredible, like Doug Martin's. Very shifty in the backfield. So you're handing a guy like that the ball in the shotgun, right? You're not under center. Whereas there are a lot of players like the Jamal Charleses or the Chris Johnsons or whatever, if they're getting the ball from under center, that's great because they're getting 2 or 3 steps to get the handoff and hit the hole hard, right? So guys who are really fast with really fast bursts are much better when they're getting the ball from under center. The quarterback has to take the snap, drop back, hand it off, and they can fucking burst through the line. So guys who are more agile than they are burst-centric are better from the shotgun. Think of Le'Veon Bell. Does Le'Veon Bell ever break away like 40, 60-yard runs? Very, very, very rarely, because he's agile, he's patient, very much like David Montgomery, and he runs a lot of his stuff from the shotgun, not from under center. So David Montgomery is going to need to go to a team that runs the ball from shotgun instead of under center for him to have success, in my opinion, because he is so agile. He's good at seeing the first guy and where they're coming from and then making a few moves to make a miss and then hitting the hole. But if you're giving him the ball from under center, he doesn't have the burst to break through the line and really have success that way, in my opinion. And if you look at this chart, I'm looking at the teams. It was the 9 teams that I named before that are running back needy, right? Because whoever picks David Montgomery is probably going to try to install him as their early down back, their workhorse, whatever. Good news for him is there are a few teams on this list that do need running backs that run a high percentage of their plays from the shotgun. So Baltimore, Chicago, Kansas City, Philadelphia, Miami are all top 12 in terms of the percentage of their plays that they run from shotgun, which is good news, because if he goes to one of those teams, the majority of those teams are already good teams. I could see David Montgomery actually going to Chicago, right? He's similar to Jordan Howard in that he's got the size for the early down workhorse, but I think Jordan Howard was such a bad fit because he sucks on third downs and can't catch the ball, whereas David Montgomery has shown that he could be a 3-down workhorse and he could catch the ball as well. So he's a great complement to Tariq Cohen. So going to Chicago, and then on the right side is the percentage of plays from shotgun that they actually ran the ball. So a lot of those teams are very high in terms of the ratio in running the ball from shotgun. So In terms of the teams that actually need running backs in this class, it's a pretty good fit for David Montgomery in a lot of spots. So the biggest concern here, athleticism, his long speed and burst, things like that. He doesn't accelerate quickly, but his agility is very, very good in the backfield. His draft spot projection is probably going to be in between rounds 2 and 3. His best landing spot are really any of those teams that run the ball from the shotgun a lot. So I like Chicago, like I said. I think Philadelphia could work. Those are probably the places that I like the most. So that's number 2, David Montgomery. All right, so before we get to the next running back on my list, a few quick announcements. Well, first of all, if you have been a longtime listener to the podcast, I would very much appreciate if you would subscribe. You obviously already subscribed. That was a dumbass statement by me. But a rating or review, because I know 99% of people won't leave a rating or review just because it's kind of out of the way for them. But I would very much appreciate it because I put a lot of work into these videos and whatnot. Let's see. Announcement number 1. We finally became an LLC. We did it, fam. Big Dogs Gotta Eat LLC. We are finally officially a business. We are taking investor money. Give me your damn money. Kidding with you. We did become an LLC, but only for fucking tax purposes, so please do not write congratulations down below. All that means is my taxes will be done differently. There is no, I don't care. I don't care. That's not the real announcement here. The announcement is this. I am excited to bring that to y'all. It is going to be absolutely incredulous. It's going to be the best preparation rookie dynasty wise that you can find on the interwebs. Second announcement, we have officially partnered up with Flea Flicker and Team Steak to bring you Big Dogs Gotta Eat exclusive fantasy leagues this year. Meaning, if you have wanted to join a dynasty league, promise you, Dynasty Fantasy Football is fucking, honestly, it's way better than seasonal leagues. So if you haven't played in a dynasty league yet, we got big news here. We have partnered with Flea Flicker, we have partnered with Team Steak, and you will be able to get access to Big Dogs only audience exclusive leagues that nobody else outside my audience can join. These are going to be paid leagues, because I don't want to open up free leagues. I know a lot of you guys will want to do free leagues, and I totally understand that. The problem with doing paid league or free leagues in Dynasty is that the rate of people who will drop out of the league is going to be ridiculously high. If you have a bad draft one year and your team sucks, and you don't have any consequences behind it, right? You don't have to pay, it's just free, you're gonna stop caring. So the Dynasty leagues are only going to be money. When I open up redraft leagues later on in the summer, you guys will be able to do free redraft leagues. I'm super excited to bring that to you. In order to access the leagues, though, you will have to be a member of patreon.com/BDGE. It is a monthly subscription service. It's just a way to support me because I put so much damn time into doing this. Going back and forth with these companies and getting on phone calls and setting up the logistics and integrations takes me a fuckload of time, guys. So this is like my livelihood here that I'm putting together for you guys. So that's just a way you guys can support me. So if you are a Patreon member, patreon.com/BDGE, you will have access to these leagues, and they will start opening, I believe, around mid-April. So a little bit before the NFL draft. They're not open yet. But on Patreon, if you are a member, you're going to get a lot of other things. You are not only going to get access to these leagues, you're going to get my full dynasty rankings of all players updated all the time, access to my rankings throughout the actual season as well, my weekly rankings. You get private live streams where you can ask me any of your sit-start waiver wire questions. And also new to this offseason is every Saturday I'm going to be bringing on someone to live stream with me to talk only Dynasty. So if you are joining the new Dynasty leagues and you're not really sure about Dynasty, you're not sure about the analysis and how to go about drafting players and things like that, I'm going to be bringing some big influencers from Twitter, the Twitter sphere, that really know their Dynasty stuff. Every week we're going to have a new guest. Sometimes I will do a solo show, but we're going to start rolling those out once the Dynasty leagues open up. So it's going to help you prepare. You're going to get private access to this. So Patreon's got a whole bunch of shit on there besides just getting access to the league. I think it's totally worth your guys' money because I put a lot of heart, soul, blood, tears, sweat, years into this shit. So go cop the draft guide, go to Patreon, subscribe, do all that stuff. I fucking love each and every one of you guys. But let's get back to the analysis. My third back on here, not necessarily my third back, but just, you know, he's just a guy I like in this class. That's Trayveon Williams of Texas A&M. And he tested out good enough for me to be happy about what he did at the combine to back up his numbers throughout his college career. At Texas A&M, he had 3 productive years. His sophomore year was a little bit of a down year, still went right below 1,000 yards from scrimmage, but 1,150 yards from scrimmage his freshman year, absolutely exploded his junior year at A&M for over 2,000 yards from scrimmage, 19 touchdowns. Ran a 4.51 at the combine. He's a smaller back, 5'8", 206, but he doesn't play like a smaller back. 73rd percentile BMI again. So his build, relatively small, but in terms of his frame size, he's not that small. College dominator rating of 79th percentile, yards per carry of 6.5 throughout his college career, 83rd percentile, 59th percentile college target share. So again, he can do it all. College dominator shows that he is productive carrying the ball. College target share shows that he can catch the ball. Good speed, 4.51 in the 73rd percentile. Good all-around athlete, burst, explosion, pass-catching ability. He runs more violent than his size suggests. My player comp for him is sort of a mix between Gio Bernard and Devonta Freeman. Just like Freeman, like I said, he runs more violent than you would think of when you first see him, his size. He is less powerful, though. I think he has more fluidity. I think he's more of a natural athlete than Devonta Freeman in his better hips. I don't think he's really as elusive as he's going to get credit for. I'm not sure I really see that he has like the X factor to be a monster producer at the NFL level or it just in fantasy football in general. But again, all of these guys are going to be dictated by where they end up landing. He looks good at times, but I don't think I see enough plays where I'm like, yeah, I watch Devin Singletary and I'm like, Jesus Christ, this guy is good. I don't get that feeling with Trayveon Williams, although I do like him, which is why he's on this list. His fantasy success, highly dependent on where he lands. I see him probably going somewhere in, I don't know. He had a good combine-ish, so like somewhere between 3rd and 5th round, probably in the mid to later part of that projection. I would like him on the Eagles a lot. I think the Eagles can use somewhere that's not going to try to put him in and give him 20 touches a game. Somewhere where he's going to get 13 to 15 touches, sort of like a Gio Bernard if they had used him more. Because those type of players are very good, but they just don't get the usage. So Trayveon Williams going to the Eagles because the Eagles like have fucking nothing in their backfield actually when you think about it. Like J.J. sucks. He's not. They can't use him anymore. He's going to be a free agent, or he is a free agent. They don't have an early down grinder. Corey Clement and Wendell Smallwood are both just like super average runners and are like okay in the passing game. So Trayveon Williams is pretty much an upgrade at every style of running back that this Eagles backfield has. So I think the best fit for him would be Philly, where they don't use a workhorse, where they use a committee, but usually someone in that committee is getting 13 to 15 touches, which would be perfect for Trayveon. The next guy on my list, Josh Jacobs out of Alabama. He did not compete at the NFL Combine, and a lot of people are saying that was a dub just because how he's had so much mojo going into the last few weeks and how he's like the top back off a lot of people's boards. Some fucking crazy analyst, NFL draft analyst, had him as literally a top 5 pick in the NFL draft. Not just a rookie draft, but the NFL draft. Makes no fucking sense whatsoever. But Josh Jacobs is going to be a very interesting conversation leading up to rookie drafts. I'll say his player comp is Mark Ingram for me, which you might say is fantastic. I think they have semi-similar running styles, but Mark Ingram benefited greatly from being in this Saints offense. If he was on like the Jets for all these years, who knows how good Mark Ingram would have been. Josh Jacobs reminds me of him. My overarching take on this is that Josh Jacobs is going to be far overdrafted in NFL drafts, but also overdrafted in dynasty drafts. He is consistently mocked as the first running back off the board in this class, which is a big deal because as bad as you think a running back is, if he has the draft pedigree, that also translates into that team giving him more opportunity, even if he shouldn't have it. Like Trent fucking Richardson is tearing up the AAF because his name is Trent Richardson, and you might see the headlines of, oh, he's got like 7 or 8 touchdowns leading the league. He's averaging like 2.1 yards per carry. So they're going to keep giving him that leash because of who he is. That's the same thing with draft pedigree. If Josh Jacobs goes in the first round of a draft, obviously he's going to get a lot of work. The only running back in recent memory was Rashad Penny that was picked in the first round and did not get like workhorse or a lot of work. consistently in his rookie year. So if Jacobs goes in the first round, he's going to be a good fantasy back just by default. Like I said, he didn't test at the combine, but his pro day is later this month, so we'll see his numbers then. I'd even say Jacobs is a little more shifty than Ingram is, and on film, I won't deny it. Jacobs looks like a beast. He's a north-south runner, but he definitely has some lateral agility as well. And the other thing I will say is that he was a kick returner at Alabama, and that is a huge positive in my eyes. He had a punt return tug his freshman year, and last year he returned 14 kicks, one for a touchdown, and averaged over 30 yards per kick return. We've seen a ton of standout special teamers translate to having NFL success, especially in the recent years. You look at Tyreek Hill, Cooper Kupp, Dante Pettis. So that tells you that he's a good athlete. He's not just like a pounding running back where you might look at him and say, you see his size, he's like 5'11", 220, I think, or something like that. And say, oh, north-south runner. But put him on kick return, that's pretty impressive. My problem is this. I'm completely fading the words flash, or if he had more touches, or if he was healthy. Any of that fucking analysis going out the window when it comes to me this year. Flashes take out, when you say, oh, look how he flashed, that literally just takes away any part of consistency that you need to have as a player, which is enormous, right? Any player at Alabama or at the NFL level is going to have plays where they flash, where they look amazing on tape because they're amazing fucking athletes. You have to be in order to be in the NFL. That doesn't mean that you could do it for 16 games, and Jacobs has never done it for a full season at Alabama. He has had a career total of 251 carries over 3 seasons. Never had more than 120 carries that he had in 2018, has never went over 640 rushing yards in a season. Of their 15 games, last year, Alabama, he saw more than 15 carries one time. One single game in which he had more than 15 carries. And he had 6 or fewer attempts in 9 of 15 games this year. 60% of their games, he had 6 or fewer carries. One game over 15 carries. His yards per carry dipped to 5.3 in 2018 once his carry total actually increased from his freshman and sophomore years. His college target share was only in the 19th percentile as well. So what you have is a back who has never shown production and or consistency over a full season. Never shown that. But what everyone sees on film is what everyone is going to go to. Showing consistency is equally as important as talent or flashing, guys. I have to get that point across to you. It's very, very important. And sure, you could say he's splitting time with XYZ, Damian Harris, who is another draft prospect this year, which could have been the reason, he had 120 carries. But when you look at the other guys that Alabama have produced at the running back position over the last few years that have the same, projected draft pedigree that went in the first, second round and have had success at the NFL level, Alabama knew what they had there, and they gave him the ball. And look at this list. It's, Derrick Henry had 406 touches while Kenyon Drake was there. TJ Yeldon, 209, 227, while both Derrick Henry and Kenyon Drake were there. Eddie Lacy, 226, while Yeldon and Kenyon Drake were there. How fucking long was Kenyon Drake at Alabama? Jesus Christ. Mark Ingram, 180 touches while Trent Richardson was there. Trent Richardson, 312 touches while Eddie Lacy was there. So for him to have touch totals of 99, 60, and 140 in the 3 years that he was at Alabama is a monstrous flag to me. Like I said, I value production and consistency over flashing and what people see on film, and I think you guys should do that as well. His draft projection is first or second round. Best landing spot would easily be the New Orleans Saints if he can go in there and replace Mark Ingram. I highly doubt that they would use a pick that high on him. I think Philadelphia is also another good landing spot for him. I could see him going to Baltimore, them using him as like the Alex Collins or the Gus Edwards role there, who he's a little bit more shifty than both of those guys. So New Orleans, Philadelphia, Baltimore would be my top 3 landing spots. I probably won't put like any of those teams, Jets, Oakland, Miami, as a top landing spot for anyone because no one's fantasy outlook is going to be maximized from landing in those spots. So first or second round draft capital, probably the first running back off the board is Josh Jacobs. Let's continue down. Justice Hill of Oklahoma State. He is absolutely the running back that benefited the most from his NFL combine performance. Everyone else fucking looked like they were moving in slow motion when they were running the 40-yard dash. Justice Hill did not. He ran a 4.40 flat 40-yard dash, putting him in the 97th percentile, 80th percentile speed score, weight-adjusted speed score. His burst score was in the 95th percentile, 5'10", 198 pounds. When I started watching film on Hill, the first thing I wrote on the paper was literally just fast, all capitalized. Like, y'all, that is what I fucking wrote. All caps, fast. This is an interesting tweet I got from Travis May. I'm not actually sure who he is or where he's from, but he said, since 2000, running backs that compete in at least 2 combine activities, 40, vertical, broad, bench, cone shuttle, and test on average in the 80th percentile or better, were selected inside day 2 of the NFL draft. So day 2 is round 1, round 2, and round 3. So of the backs that compete in 2 combine activities and test in the 80th percentile or better, 86% of the time they are drafted within the first 3 rounds. And Justice Hill is the only running back that actually fits that category this year. So 86% of the time, Justice Hill would be drafted in the top 3 rounds, which would obviously lead to more opportunities on the NFL level, which is crazy because you think of a guy like Justice Hill and he's good, he's fast, but he's not Nick Chubb or Darius Geis, who were the guys that we're discussing in the second round of last year's draft process. So it was crazy. But we've established that Justice Hill is fast. Natural pass catcher as well when I watch him on film. Some people disagree, but I think he's fine. He had 31 receptions his sophomore year. Again, I'm looking for one season in which he did it over the entire span. 31 receptions, good. That's a solid mark. Good rushing production. All 3 years at Oklahoma State. He was a starting back as the freshman, ran for 1,142 yards, backed it up with a 1,650, 16 touchdown sophomore season. He had a rib injury in his junior season, which left him short of 1,000 rushing yards. But overall, really solid production over a long period of time. My comparable player for Justice Hill is Marlon Mack. And I said this exact same thing when I was watching Marlon Mack when I was evaluating him as a rookie. When you first see Justice Hill, he looks like a wide receiver. He looks like more of an athlete. He's like long limbs, kind of skinny in the limbs. Not like these guys who have thick BMIs or like the Maurice Jones-Drew or like the thick running backs. Justice Hill looks more like an athlete or a wide receiver. Noah, one of my bloggers, told me that he might have been a converted wide receiver to running back, which would make sense. So Marlon Mack is a guy who I said the same thing about when I watched him on film, but Justice Hill to Marlon Mack is my best comparable. Those are the pros for Justice Hill. The cons. He literally might be the worst pass blocker I've ever seen at the running back position. Like fucking miserable. Watch this clip. He's supposed to block that linebacker blitzing, and his quarterback gets absolutely smacked. We're going to watch that like 4 times over because it's just very pure entertainment. And I love the Draft Network. They're one of my favorite, thedraftnetwork.com, one of my favorite resources to look up prospects and get analysis on them. But the write-ups on Justice Hill, they said that they were all pleasantly surprised by his pass blocking ability. I don't know what the fuck film that they were watching, but it wasn't just that play. I watched plenty of film on Justice Hill, and he is literally probably the worst pass blocking running back I've ever seen. Great effort by the guy. Horrible fucking execution. Horrible pass blocking. So I don't know what they were watching. They also have DK Metcalf as their consensus number 1 wide receiver. Every single one of their analysts put Metcalf as wide receiver 1, which I'll get into on Friday in my wide receiver video. But like, I love the work they do and I respect it, but I'm going to have to start putting a grain of salt in with a lot of things they do. Justice Hill, what else as a con for me? He gets very jumpy feet at the line of scrimmage. So he like sometimes unnecessarily is like jumping around and runs right into the fucking back of his lineman. But that's all right, y'all. Take the good with the bad when you have a playmaker like Hill who has very big speed and can make those big-time plays. A lot of people said the same thing with Marlon Mack, that he was kind of just like pulled outside. He always wanted to bounce runs outside. Worked out for him great last year. So you got to take the good with the bad. Not everyone's going to be Saquon Barkley. He also doesn't have the build to be a workhorse, 5'10", 198 pounds. But I don't think teams will be looking at him to use him that way, hopefully. He's not powerful. You don't want him to be the grinder or the guy who's probably getting many goal line touches. But you look at his raw size, and it's not horrible. His BMI, it is actually horrible. 28.4, which is in the 14th percentile of running backs, which wasn't a surprise. Like I said, if you saw him on film, you look at him and you're like, he doesn't look like a running back. Unlike David Montgomery, though, Hill has great burst. And like I said, if he can go to an offense that runs the ball from under center and not so much from out of the shotgun, I think Hill has a real chance of succeeding. You give him a few steps to get going, right? Those 2 or 3 steps before he gets the ball. If he sees a hole, he's going to blast through it. This was to the detriment of Ronald Jones, however, last year. And it was my exact analysis on Ronald Jones and why I didn't really like him too much going into fantasy drafts last year. He's a one-cut back with great burst. Put him on an offense that doesn't open up big holes, and he's going to really struggle like he did in Tampa Bay last year. Now, Hill is better than Jones. He's a better athlete, he tests better, all of that stuff. So my comparable for Justice Hill is not Ronald Jones, it's Marlon Mack. And he also contributes in the passing game, which is great. So I'm not comparing the two. I'm just painting this motherfucking picture like Vince Van Gogh for y'all. So I like Justice Hill. I see him going in the 2nd or 3rd round based on how well he did the combine. I actually kind of like him at Oakland. I also, again, like him at Chicago to take over maybe the Jordan Howard role or just be like a 1-2 combo with Tariq Cohen. Just use 2 athletes in the backfield. You don't need a fucking grinder in today's NFL. So Oakland, Chicago, second, third round for Justice Hill. We're going to move over to Miles Sanders. And Miles Sanders is the last running back that I actually really like. And I will get to a couple honorable mentions after Miles Sanders. Again, guys, though, if you are enjoying the video or if you're listening via podcast and you are enjoying it, right? If you're finding some value from this, if your man's just hooking you up with the big facts, make sure you hit that thumbs up button down below. Make sure you go check out BigDogsDraftGuide.com/buy if you want to pre-order the Rookie Dynasty Draft Guide, which is on pre-order pricing, so you'll get early bird special. Same thing with the season long, but that won't come out till a little bit later. You'll get a discount on both of them if you pre-order them both now. I love y'all. I like Miles Sanders. I like him a little bit less than I like you. We'll put it that way. Miles Sanders came in at 5'11", 211 pounds. Ran the 40 at 4.49. Puts him in the 75th percentile for weight-adjusted speed score. But he was a 75th percentile athlete in both burst score and the agility score. So he just played really well at the combine. Miles Sanders, just like Justice Hill, is another guy that is going to need to land in a good spot, I think, and benefit from the combine. So his draft stock is going to shoot up, meaning that his play time will likely shoot up as well. Just like all these Penn State skill players, man. The guys that come out from Penn State, Barkley, Chris Godwin, Mike Gesicki, they're all freak athletes and test so well at the combine. They must have some kind of secret, man. I don't know what it is, but something's going on over there at Penn State. Probably because all the goddamn hot girls, all they want to do is work out all day. I don't blame them, to be honest, now that I'm thinking about it. I'll say this with Miles Sanders. When I watched the film, there were a lot of times that I watched it and he excited me. A lot of really good plays. Other times I watched and I was like, he's a jag. He's just a guy. And it didn't excite me. Real NFL running backs, real beasts out there, they give it to you on every play. And you're like, okay, I understand. There was nothing in the line. I could see why that play was just shot. And Sanders sometimes does not give that to me. However, we didn't get to see much of him as freshman or sophomore year, obviously, because he was behind Saquon Barkley, right? But you're not going to put Miles Sanders on the field when Saquon Barkley is at your fucking disposal. What does a little bit concern me is Barkley caught 54 passes in 2017 at Penn State. Then Miles Sanders took over as a starter last year, and he only caught 24 passes. He needs to be a good pass catcher, something to keep a very close eye on. And it could have just been a weird year because Saquon did actually only catch 28 and 20 passes in the 2 years prior to that, to his 54 reception junior season. I'm not buying too much into the fact that Miles Sanders doesn't catch passes because 24 is not a terrible number. Sanders does get a little jumpy sometimes, and he looks to break the runs outside too quickly, right? He doesn't like to run up the gut, but that's fine. Again, I don't think a team should be using him as their workhorse back. I'll take the good with the bad. It could be a problem at the next level, only to the point that coaches might not want to stuff him up the fucking middle for 3 yards and just bash his head against the offensive lineman. I know Mike McCoy would be furious if they took Miles Sanders because now he's like, damn, who am I going to shove up the middle on 1st and 10 for a 1 yard game? That's the problem. But again, Sanders tested really good all around at the combine. 4.49, 75th percentile weight adjusted speed score, burst score, agility score, they're all there. His junior year production, great. 1,274 rushing yards, 5.8 yards per carry, 9 touchdowns, 24 receptions, 139 receiving yards. Again, best landing spot would be somewhere within the 3rd and 4th round. I think Philadelphia would also be another great spot for him. So Philadelphia is going to draft a running back. I think that Miles Sanders works there. I think a lot of the backs work there, but none that they want to use as a featured workhorse. Darrell Henderson, a lot of people are going to get excited about. I just didn't see it. I didn't see it. When I watched the film, I didn't see it. His yards per carry have been fucking absurd. Everyone knows that. 8.9 yards per carry over the last 2 seasons. What I saw was there were a lot of plays where the line just opened up gigantic plays, and given the fact that he ran, pull it up real quick, Darrell Henderson, a 4.49. So it wasn't crazy fast, but he ran a 4.49 which is obviously enough to be breakaway speed. I saw huge holes and I saw a lot of very big runs coming from those huge holes, which would obviously inflate your yards per carry. He played at Memphis, which the competition is of course going to be much lesser. That's my problem. And he didn't catch really that many passes. He was in the 51st percentile for college target share. So when his best comparable player on Player Profiler came up as Paul Perkins, I was kind of excited for my own selfish reasons because I didn't like Darrell Henderson and I was kind of nervous that after his combine testing, he was going to show up as like a, an MJD or some shit like that. So I don't love Darrell Henderson. I know a lot of people will like him. Damian Harris at Alabama, not my guy. Rodney Anderson, built like Joe Mixon, does not play like Joe Mixon. Another guy like Alex Barnes, who has the size to be a three-down workhorse, but does not run like it. I actually like Rodney Anderson in the sense that he's really good at catching the ball. Really smooth catcher, and his yards per reception was like 16 yards or something like that. They didn't use him enough, but he looks really good in the passing game. So I'll keep an eye on where he lands. Other than that, those are the guys that I actually really like. I don't want to break down every single player. Let me know your thoughts down below. Some guys that you agree with, disagree with, your favorite landing spots for some guys. Make sure you hit that thumbs up button while you're down there. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you are new. And of course, make sure you check out the draft guide at bigdogsdraftguide.com. Check us out on patreon.com/BDGE. And I love y'all. I'll see you guys on tomorrow's video, which is my bi-weekly vlog behind the scenes of everything we're building over here at Big Dogs Gotta Eat. I love you. Peace.